Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm the host of the show at KJZZ. So we do a little bit of everything. If you listen, you know that. But we also do a lot of Arizona politics. So it makes me really excited to introduce our distinguished panel here today. Start on the far side. That is Felecia Rotellini, chair of the Arizona Democratic Party. And we've got Howard Blitz, chair of the Arizona Libertarian Party. Amee Beck here, co-chair of the Arizona Green Party. And of course, Dr. Kelli Ward, chair of the Arizona Republican Party. So thank you all for being here. Give them a round of applause. And thank you all for being here, for caring about the elections, for caring about the civic process. I care about it a lot. So in this panel, what I want to do, is focus on what these state party leaders have to tell you, the voters, right, about the upcoming election, about what their parties stand for and what they want you to know. So we'll take audience questions at the end. Keep that in mind. Write them down as you go. I'm excited to hear them. But I want to begin with by having each of you, and maybe we'll just start with Felecia and work our way down for this one, talk about, so if someone's new to the political process, has no idea what to vote for or who to vote for on their ballot, what does it mean then to be, or maybe if somebody, first of all, is also just confused about what parties stand for, which would be fair, I think, today as well. Tell us briefly, what does it mean to be associated with your party? What are the things that you believe in, the core values?
Thanks so much. First off, the reason why this country is so great is because it's always been the land of opportunity. And the Democrats who associate with the Democratic Party and others who associate with the Democratic Party know that one of the core overreaching values of the Democratic Party is that everyone has the right to be treated fairly, with justice, and to make sure that they all have equal opportunities to succeed. That's why our core values include a great, robust public education system. So everybody has a shot at the American dream. It's why if you believe in Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare as the programs that have helped working class families to make sure that they have a reasonable retirement and to make sure that it's actually the greatest program to prevent poverty in our working class families as they move into the retirement years, you would be associating with the Democratic Party. It's the party of equal rights, human rights, civil rights, justice, and it's the party that is really we the people. If you look at the preamble to the Constitution, which I have brought here, the party that actually supports and fights for the values of the preamble of the Constitution is the Democratic Party. The Constitution was created, and the preamble says this. It says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare," and that's the welfare of all, "and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity," which means protect our freedoms for us and for our generations to come. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States. So when I think of being a Democrat, I think of the Democrats as the originators of the phrase, "we the people."
All right, Howard.
You know what's great about being, am I on?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? You know what's great about being on this panel? You're surrounded by all these beautiful women. I get a kick out of that. So thanks for being here, ladies. So what does it mean to be a libertarian? If you haven't already stopped by our booth, our table over there, pick up this political quiz. This will tell you where you stand. Being a libertarian means more freedom and less government. It stands for the Constitution, as Felecia was talking about. It stands for the Declaration of Independence. Government should not censor speech, press, media, or internet. Libertarian position. Military service should be voluntary. Libertarian position. There should be no laws regarding sex between consenting adults. A libertarian position. We would be in favor of repealing laws prohibiting adult possession and use of drugs. There should be no national ID card. These are all philosophical positions of the Libertarian Party. End corporate welfare on the economic side. There should be no government handouts to any business. End government barriers to international free trade. There should be free trade between all people anywhere around the world. Let people control their own retirement. Let them figure out how to retire for themselves. Replace government welfare with private charity and cut taxes and government spending. Government spending should only be done as authorized by the U.S. Constitution. In the U.S. Constitution, there's a list of 18 areas where the federal government is authorized to raise money through taxation and spend money through these various activities that they're allowed to do. Otherwise, they're not to do it. So basically, in a nutshell, being a libertarian means you're in favor of more freedom and less government.
All right, move on to Amee.
Yes. So a green voter. A green voter is somebody whose value is peace, is somebody whose value is ecology, and what that entails is the protection of it and the support of it. A green voter is somebody who values social justice, and a green voter also values democracy, because all of those things are supported in the Green Party without the influence of corporate donations. So if you value peace, and if you value policies and candidates that want to address the climate crisis without the outside influence of money in politics, then you're a green voter.
And Kelli.
Well, I am here representing the Republican Party, and Republicans believe in small government, which means as few regulations as possible. We believe in low taxes because we think we, the people, are able to spend our money better than the government can spend our money. We believe in personal responsibility and expect that individuals are able to govern themselves rather than living in a totalitarian or a police-type state. And, of course, we believe in following the Constitution, not just the preamble, but the entire Constitution, as well as the amendments that are currently in effect. We believe in all of those things. We work hard to make sure that we are a country of laws and order, that we pass laws. There's no point to have a government if you pass laws that you don't enforce. And that's why we have a representative republic, so that we can send people to our local areas, our state government, our federal government, to represent us very well on the things that we want to see as the people to be put into place as policy. If we don't like the current policy that's in place, we believe in following the rules to change that policy. We're known for being very strong supporters of legal immigration, because that is a law and order position. We also believe that taxes should be as low as possible. We love education, and we want students to have success. And that means having very strong public schools, but also having access for our students and our families to other kinds of education if that's going to work better for those students, because that's going to provide more for them to be able to be successful in the future, for them to lead not only our state and our nation, but also to lead in their communities. We believe in the Second Amendment and our right to protect ourselves. We believe that those are God-given rights that are assured to us by our Constitution. We fight heartily for free speech, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble, and freedom of the press, as well as the right to privacy, that the government should not be interfering, intervening, and peeking in on our day-to-day lives. We are a party that has a very big tent welcoming everyone in, because we want the great opportunity that America affords us to be offered to everyone. Basically, the basics of the Republican Party are freedom and opportunity.
Thank you all. All right, that gives you, if you're unaware, a really good groundwork, I think, right? So this leads me to another question, which has something to do, or maybe nothing to do, with each of your parties, right? Which is about unaffiliated or independent voters. We're seeing a growing number of them, especially independent voters here in Arizona. So especially leading up to something like a presidential preference election, where you're going to have to convince people to register with your party in order to vote for somebody of your party. And that, how do you plan on reaching out to those independent voters, unaffiliated voters? Whoever wants to begin, jump on in.
I'll start. First off, the independent voters or the unaffiliated voters have been voting with the Democrats. And that's why Democrats won in 2018. That's why we have a U.S. Senator that's a Democrat, why we have our elections at the state level in the hands of a Democrat. It's why we have our Maricopa County elections in the hands of a Democrat. It's why our public education system is in the hands of the Democrat. Is because when we talk about values, which is part of the first question that you asked, the values that our independent or unaffiliated voters are looking for is the values that the Democratic candidates are fighting for. And as I've traveled the state for the last 30 years and have talked to Arizonans, regardless of their party affiliation, they're independent thinkers. And unaffiliated voters, like actually Democrats and Republicans, are looking for the person who's going to embody those values. And those values that are important today are the same values that have always been important, but right now, neither independents nor Republicans have a place to go. That's why Democrats are winning, and they're winning on public education, on Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, on affordable, accessible health care. That is, without a doubt, the most important issue. And after the 2016 election, what we saw was an emergence of all these groups, resistance, AZ Blue 2020, Ground Game, and they were Democrats, Republicans, and mostly unaffiliated voters who were now working 100% to get Democrats elected. Because these values that Democrats are fighting for, regardless of what our chair of the Republican Party says, the only ones that are actually working on making these values law are the Democrats. And these values really do transcend party affiliation. Climate crisis. The Democratic Party is the only party that can actually fight, win elections, and make a difference in Congress and in the state. Making sure that we have livable wages so working families don't have to work 3 jobs to make ends meet, so that they don't have to choose between getting their prescription drugs and putting food on the tables for their families. These issues, human rights, civil rights, equality, LGBTQ issues, these values are the values of the Democratic Party, but they're also the values of unaffiliated voters, and that's why we're going to win again in 2020.
I think we should let Kelli respond.
Well, of course, I'd have to disagree with what Felecia had to say. I know many, many unaffiliated voters, people who haven't chosen a party yet, and people who are independents, and they are frustrated with the party system in general. And I'm sure that Howard will agree with this because many of those frustrated people also join the Libertarian Party and share some of those freedom-loving values of the Libertarian Party. The independents, I think, are frustrated with the infighting within both parties, Republicans and Democrats. And our system has always been a candidate-driven democratic republic. And people are looking for great candidates. Now, the system that we have is that people affiliate with a party because those parties embody the things that they believe in. Every party has a platform that you can read. They're public. You can search them on Google or whatever your search engine of choice is. And I would urge you to do that, to search the Republican Party platform, search the Democrat Party platform, the Libertarian platform, and the Green platform, so that you can see where, as a national organization, people come from. I'd have to disagree. I mean, we still have the majority of our offices across this state are held by Republicans. And I think that 2018 is a turning point because they've seen that what's happened, having, in my opinion, maybe not in all of your opinions, too many seats in the hands of Democrats. If you just look at public education, the people who gave raises to our teachers, who will make them by the end of 2020, the 16th highest paid teachers in the entire nation, are the Republicans. Every single Democrat voted against that plan to give great teachers great pay. You wouldn't know it because we have a media that skews things in a different direction. I think independents and people who aren't affiliated with a party are starting to open their eyes. They do see the crisis at the border. They see people flooding our country in the wrong way, coming the wrong way. They see people skipping the line when people have been waiting for years for merit-based immigration. And they know that the Republicans and President Trump are the only ones that will deliver on the promises that they made. I think that independents and unaffiliated voters are looking for people who do what they say and say what they mean. Now, whether you like President Trump or you don't, you have to understand that he is delivering on the promises that he made. He has strengthened our economy. He has grown our manufacturing industry. He has put more money back into the pockets of everyone. The average amount of money that people, middle-class people, are having in their pockets right now, it was about $15 a month under President Obama. It's $161 a month under President Trump. That's what people understand. They vote with their wallet. Just yesterday, we saw President Trump talking about criminal justice reform. The only party that is delivering on the promises to people in our underserved and our minority communities on criminal justice reform are the Republicans. So our job as a Republican Party is to make sure that the truth actually gets out to the masses. Sometimes we don't get it through the media, and it has to come through a different way. That's why we're building relationships in communities across Arizona and across the country so that the principles that Republicans hold dear that lead to happiness, health, security, and prosperity can be put into action.
I want to turn to Howard next because you mentioned the Libertarian Party there, and I think that's an interesting point. Do you see, Howard, independents coming to your party, or is that an effort you're making?
Yes. When you look at the data for Arizona, one party, if you will, that has the most registrations is the independent and non-affiliated ones. And I think it's because they're dissatisfied with the two major parties right now.
Well, it's not quite, Howard. There's 1.3 million Republicans, 1.2 million unaffiliated and independent, 1.1 and some change Democrats, 32,000 Libertarians, and 6,000 Greens right now.
Okay.
We're working hard to get more Republicans.
Well, we're
His
working
point,
hard
though,
to,
right, is
we're
that
working hard to
independents
get
are
the
growing.
independence because I think if you believe in the non-aggression principle, the principle where you don't initiate violence against anyone for any reason, if you believe that, yeah, government can provide anything we want it to provide, but it only has one method to do that, and that's through the use of force. It doesn't have any other method. There's no such thing as mandatory charity. Okay? You can't have mandatory charity. It's an oxymoron. You either have charity or you don't. Otherwise, government is forcing you to do something. Okay? That's the only way government can accomplish its goals. If we want government to do anything, it's only got one method to do it, and that's through pointing a gun at you. Yeah, they'll give you a nice letter saying, hey, you owe your taxes and you owe this. But then eventually, if you just ignore these letters, eventually somebody with a badge, with a gun, will come to your house and arrest you. That's how it works. And that's what libertarians are trying to fight against, because we truly believe in freedom. The freedom of the individual to make his own choices about whatever he wants to make it about, whether it's education, ingesting drugs, not ingesting drugs, health care, whatever the issue is. It doesn't matter. It's up to the individual to make that choice, not the government. Because that's what we're talking about. When it says in the Declaration of Independence, okay, what's the function of government? The function of government is to preserve, protect, secure each and every single one of our individual rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, I underline that word pursuit because we're not entitled to happiness. We have a right to pursue it. And that's the big difference in the Libertarian Party and the other parties. We really truly believe it. So stop by our table and sign up and be a registered voter in the Libertarian Party.
Okay, and Amee, what
Yes.
about the Green Party here? So 6,000 voters, like Kelli said. How are you expanding that?
A little more than 6,000.
A little more.
But yeah, the growing number of the independent voters is a direct result of the larger parties not addressing values of average Americans. And so growing numbers of lists, like in Arizona, 1.2 million independent voters are a result of not being able to align your own values. Most Green Party members work on issues within their communities, and those are issues on immigration. So the Green Party, if you didn't know that, wants amnesty for all immigrants. Those are the types of things we value. Those are the types of things in communities that Green Party members would work on. We want to end the school to prison pipeline. So if independent voters don't see a candidate who would do that, you found it with the Greens. The Green Party definitely wants reparations. That is something that we, across the board, it would be something we support, those types of issues. And I think growing numbers of independent voters don't see anybody addressing those types of things. Those are what is happening in people's communities that is not being addressed. Those are our current issues, but those affect you day to day in what you do in your life. And the Green Party is really the only one addressing that, and we just definitely appreciate being able to come to these events to tell you we're here, register as a Green, those types of values. If you value peace, ecology, social justice, and democracy, then you're already a Green voter and just didn't know you could.
So this whole conversation, I think, leads very nicely to my next question, which has to do with sort of the political landscape we're in right now, which is, I think, feels to a lot of people very angry and very divisive. And I think a lot of people who are not engaged in the political process just say, I don't want anything to do with that. So my question for you, as the people leading these parties in the state, is, how do you convince people that it's worth investing in, that it's worth being a part of, that it's worth registering with each of your parties, and that bipartisan policymaking, real government stuff, can actually still happen? Howard, go ahead.
Well, libertarians, we really believe in the individual. And I think this is a one-on-one case. You have to talk to each individual and find out what's important to them and how freedom can actually help them achieve whatever goal it is that they have. We don't really have a societal goal. We don't really have a country goal. We got individual goals, which when you add them all up, become the society. But it still boils down to the individual. Libertarians are all about the individual and helping the individual succeed and achieve his goals. And the only way that individual can do that is if they have the freedom to do it. In other words, they don't have to go and get a permission slip from the government to go do whatever it is that they want to do. As long as it's peaceful, okay? It's this non-aggression principle again. You're not allowed to initiate force against somebody else. In other words, can't kill, can't maim, can't defraud, can't cheat, lies, all this basic stuff that we all learn as kids. And this is what we libertarians believe in. Let the person choose. Yeah, they may make a mistake. You're right. That's exactly how we learn, though. Okay? We can't, you can't force people to help other people. That's not how it works. Well, how it works in real life is you help people because you really, truly believe in wanting to help people. And we got a slew of organizations, and I'll bet you all of you are associated with some organization, and I'm sure you do it individually. You help people. That's what we believe in. So, the civil discourse needs to be attacking the ideas. We got to stop attacking each other as individuals. This isn't an individual problem. We got issues that we're discussing. So discuss the issues. Quit the name calling, quit all that stuff, and talk about the issues. What's the best method by which to succeed in life? And the libertarians think it's giving individual freedom and liberty, and that's how individuals are going to be able to succeed.
Anybody?
Yeah. Well, I think bipartisanship is definitely possible, and it happens every day, especially at the local level and at the state level. I was a state senator in Arizona. In my last year in office, I had 19 bills, and the vast majority of those bills had widespread bipartisan support because they were based on policies that were good for the people of Arizona, not just the Republicans that lived in Legislative District 5, but for the people of our entire state. And so we have to make sure that we get people in office who are able to communicate their ideas in a respectful, civil way with each other so that we can put together great policy that will affect the people of our state and our nation in a good way. What we're seeing at the federal level right now is horrendous, in my opinion. If you look at the whole picture, it seems like it would be happening in a movie that you might even just walk out of because it was so unbelievable. There are policies that Republicans put forward that the Democrats refused to come to the table for because a Republican brought it. And the same on the other side. There are policies that the Democrats bring forward, and the Republicans don't want to give the president in particular at this point in time a political win. Look at the DACA issue. Okay, DACA is something that affects us in Arizona immensely. I know lots of people who are wonderful people who are kind of in this limbo of DACA. So they were put in this terrible position by policies that happened before. But President Trump offered the Democrats to give amnesty basically to the entire DACA population. And because that would have been seen as a political win for President Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the leaders on the Democrat side refused to come to the table for that policy. We also have the USMCA on the table right now, a great alternative to NAFTA that Democrats and Republicans believe will help our American citizens, it will help our trade, it will help American businesses, and because it will give a political win potentially to the president and to Republicans, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer want to keep it off the table. Instead, we've got Democrats, unfortunately, like Tom O'Halloran and Ann Kirkpatrick, that are going, well, as well as some of the others as well, but going for this outrageous, unnecessary so-called impeachment rather than getting the business of the people of Arizona and the people of the country done. I think it's going to take some changes in people who are elected, and it also takes us as voters. It is our responsibility as voters to talk to our elected representatives at every level and turn them into the kind of representatives that we want them to be, which is really we want them to be us at whatever level of government where they are. And we want them to get things done, not just talk about it, not just take a big salary, not just have a big pension. We don't just want them to get things done. We need them to get things done for our communities, our state, and our nation. And I think that bipartisanship is possible if we can turn that corner and stop seeing everything in terms of a political scoreboard that puts up a check for the Republicans, a check for the Democrats, a check for the Libertarians or the Greens, and start seeing it as running up the score for the United States of America.
I know Felecia wants to respond.
Sure. So let's go back to the question. The question was, what can we do to get people to understand their vote counts in this hyper-partisanship where everybody is sick and tired of the back and forth and nothing gets done? And I would submit that Dr. Ward's response is a perfect example of the fear-mongering, of the hateful speech, of the kind of thing that is turning off unaffiliated voters and turning off Republicans and turning them to the Democratic Party. I would give someone an example of what happened when in 2018 we were able to, the Democratic Party was able to take 4 seats away from the Republicans in our state house. All of a sudden, we have an opportunity for bipartisanship. The Republicans are still in the majority by actually 2 votes. But as a result of creating more equilibrium and more balance, we were able to repeal the law, our House and with the Senate, a Republican Senate, and signed by Doug Ducey, our governor, our Republican governor. The state of Arizona was able to repeal the terrible, hateful legislation where no one in our public school system, no teachers, could talk about LGBTQ issues. It was a great day for the state of Arizona. It was a great day for the Green Party. It was a great day for Libertarians because this was taking government out of the bedroom. It was taking the government out of individual rights, and it was also consistent with the Green Party. And it happened only because the Democrats were able to take 4 seats from the Republicans and create the equilibrium and create the balance and create the bipartisanship and the civil discourse to get something done that was in the best interest of the state and our nation as well. I would give examples of Kathy Hoffman, who was the reason why we were able to get public education back on track for everyone. I would give examples of Democratic leaders like John F. Kennedy, like leaders that really inspired people to vote and to do, and his quotes, they're still the quotes that I grew up with. Ask not what you can do for what your country can do for you, but ask what your country, let me get this straight. Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. The inspiration of leaders who are going to put people first is so important, and that's going to make people vote. Another reason why people are going to vote, because Donald Trump is manipulating the White House and has aligned himself with ISIS and Saudi Arabia.
I have to say that is not true.
But
that
just
is
let
not
me
true.
say,
I'm
the
just-
most
yeah.
important thing that we can do today is vote for civility, vote for a president who's not going to align himself with the most dangerous foreign nations that are the reason why we had 9/11, and what they're doing in the manipulation of DACA. I just need to say that we can't use human beings as leverage for immigration reform. What we need is smart immigration reform that makes sure that we treat everyone as humans. The majority of Americans want to see a road to citizenship for our DACA kids, but not at the expense of a wall where we took $30 million away from Fort Huachuca and Sierra Vista to build a wall and to make a wall taller and to add more razor wire. Those are not policy decisions that are in the best interest of Arizona. They're not policy decisions in the best interest of America. And the best thing we can do is stop the vitriol, stop the fear-mongering of the Republican Party, get talking about the issues that matter, and solve problems. And having more Democrats elected is going to be the solution.
We
do have
want to get
just-
to Amee before.
But we do have to say that the president has not aligned himself with ISIS. That is a total and complete fabrication.
With a debate
so
for another
we have
time.
to get that. Yes, we have, but we
Yes.
have to put that out there. You
That's
can't
fine.
have them filming saying
I want to
such.
I want to
such,
let Amee. I want to let
atrocious
Amee have
lies.
her say here to this final question. This is the last question we're going to have time for before we get to audience questions. So go ahead.
Perfect. So bipartisanship is really what the problem is, why we do have the growing numbers of unaffiliated voters, because it's truly not a bipartisan system we have. We actually have a multi-party system here. However, some other of the larger parties seems to, as a Green, there's not a lot of difference between the two. And that is to do more with, less with kind of the differences between the philosophy, but more where the funding comes from. As a Green, our funding does not come from those corporate interests. So vitriol and differences that seem bigger are really not. The detail is in the funding. And we don't have that funding for those corporate interests that want to dictate values to the rest of us. Values like ending mass incarceration, values like amnesty for immigrants, values like Medicare for all. That's why we have the unaffiliated voters, because no one has stood up but the Greens to support that.
Do we have audience questions? We can turn to those now. In our last 15 minutes. I think that they've been gathering them on the cards, if I'm not wrong. Okay, well, while we wait for those to gather, I have more questions, of course. And this one's a very forward-looking question for the four of you, and I think it's an important one. So as we look to the future generations in this country, the young people who we're seeing more and more of vote, right, and especially we did in Arizona in 2018, what is your responsibility, you think, as parties to reach out to those young people, to represent them in real ways, and to hear what they have to say as they become voting, participants of our nation? You want to start, Kelli?
Well, I was going to let Amee start since she always gets the short end.
That's
at
true.
the
Amee,
end.
go
So
ahead. You start.
If she wants to start, she can start.
Yeah, the young people are looking to affiliate with something, as you can see with some of the movements, of course, because they see a crisis here. The young people see a crisis, and no one has addressed it, but so young people are taking to the streets. And when they come of age and when they're ready to vote, we need to give them that choice, and that choice needs to be not just Republicans, not just Democrats, but parties that address those values right there. So young people have a place to vote, so they can take that energy that they've taken to the streets and into the polling places and let the rest of their communities know and their families know and the planet know that this is their value, and we're here to support that value. We support ecological wisdom, and we do that without corporate funding, and we see the young people and their efforts in their protesting as our as what we do as Greens as well. We have a lot of activists in our party, so that aligns perfectly with where the Greens are at. What we want to tell them, though, is that we are here, but we need these forums, these events, and we need access to the ballot to do that as well.
Howard, go ahead.
Yeah, the Libertarians want to build self-esteem, self-confidence in people. When we're talking to young people, older people, middle-aged, it doesn't matter who we're talking to. We need more self-esteem and self-confidence in this country. When we have to turn to government for every single issue that we have, we're in desperate need of help. And that means more self-esteem and more self-confidence. Government cannot solve our problems. It can't. Because like I said before, the only way it can do it is through the butt of a gun. And we don't want violence in this country. We want people to feel good about themselves, and we want them to feel like they can make a decision for themselves. And that's what we don't have. And that's why we got all this civil discourse going on. We need to be addressing the issues. What's the best way to give self-confidence and self-esteem to people, especially kids growing up? What's the best way to do that? Well, teach them right and wrong. Teach them what is right, that you're not supposed to steal, that you're not supposed to use force on somebody. And then we have to teach them what the nature of government is. And the nature of government is force. It's violence. It doesn't have any other method to use to get it done. Okay, it can provide health care for everybody in this country, but it's going to do it through violence. It's going to steal money. It's going to take money out of your pocket, out of our pockets, and give it to somebody else. You know, it's like turning a football game over to a referee and letting the referee decide, okay, which team's going to win. What? Kind of weird. It won't happen. So turning our problems over to government isn't the problem. The problem is us. We need to build our self-esteem and self-confidence. And once we do that, we're not going to ask government for anything, because we don't advocate the use of violence against anybody. I don't know of anybody that advocates the use of violence against anybody.
Go ahead.
So, Howard, I agree with you. What I'm seeing, and we in the Democratic Party have a huge influx of young people. And the reason is they believe that right now the only way to preserve human rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, disability rights, veterans' rights, social justice, is to ensure that we have a government that does take into consideration the welfare of all and does look to sound policies and laws that are going to make sure we are doing something about the climate crisis. It is a crisis, and they know that they're going to be inheriting that crisis. And our planet is our responsibility, and it's our responsibility under the Constitution, the entire Constitution, to preserve our freedoms and our liberties for all generations to come. They are also looking to the Democratic Party to make sure that we are calling out lies, that we are calling out the lack of integrity in leadership, and that we are the party that has leaders that we can believe in. That when I was growing up, leaders, elected officials, people in the political parties were people that you wanted to emulate, not people that spewed so much hate and vitriol that you were offended by them, that your parents didn't want you to follow their lead because it was not the way to be. It wasn't the right way to be, Howard. And so I agree with you on so many levels. And the Democrats and the Libertarians and the Green Party agree on so many of these issues and the need for a reasonable government that's going to preserve these rights and these freedoms. And the youth of today, they're smarter, they're more sophisticated, they call it the way they see it, and they recognize that the only way we're going to preserve our democracy, we're going to preserve these freedoms, is to elect new leaders that are going to fight for their values. And the reason why Democrats have been winning is because the values important to the Americans and the values important to Arizonans are the laws and the policies that Democrats are fighting for. And I've talked about them, but it's education, it's health care, it's DACA, it's smart immigration reform, it's making sure that we have livable wages and we have an infrastructure, and it's making sure that we as individuals have our freedoms protected, that government stays out of our bedrooms, that women have the right to choose, and nobody can tell a woman what to do with their bodies. And right now, if the youth of America see that the only way they can make sure these values happen and are actually executed is to vote for the Democrats that are fighting for them.
Okay, and last word on this,
Well, I didn't.
Kelly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We young people are very important to all of us. I mean, they are our future, and I think that's why they're looking to the Republican Party and to the party of freedom, the party of conservative values. Now, sometimes they don't rush right to the Republican Party. They come through organizations like Turning Point USA, like Campus Reform, like Young Americans for Liberty, because we do share a lot of the same values as many parties profess to uphold and to hold dear. Turning Point USA is the largest young organization of young people in our entire nation, and it continues to grow because they do not want socialistic policies like, unfortunately, what the Green Party and the Democrat Party have been proposing on a national level for far too long. They believe, and I agree to them to a large extent, that taxation is theft. It's taking from someone who produces, and it takes their wealth and gives it to people who don't. That doesn't mean that we don't support charity, and we do. And we also believe that the government, the federal government in particular, has enumerated powers that taxation must occur for so that we can accomplish those goals. However, the federal government has become overreaching, overbearing, overtaxing, and overregulating. And that's why Republicans, especially conservative Republicans, are looking to scale that back. That resonates with young people today. When you look at the life issue, the Democrat Party has become so radical on life, even here in Arizona, that they proposed a bill this session that would allow a child who was born alive after an abortion attempt to be left alone to die with no medical care whatsoever. That was introduced and hoped, I believe, by the Democrat Party to never see the light of day. However, Republicans wanted the people to be able to see how radical the Democrat Party has become. They've become not the party of John F. Kennedy, of ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, but to the country of AOC, who says, you do it. You do it. And I think that is why young people are, and young, old, black, white, Latina, Latino, Latinx, LGBT. I was just at a walk-away event last night with hundreds of people who were former Democrats or no party whatsoever, who have not just walked away from that radical agenda of increasing size of government, of redistribution of wealth, of open borders and amnesty for no matter who comes to our country, not based on a merit system, of stressing the economy via wealth redistribution rather than free market capitalism. They are not just walking away, they are running away from that agenda because, just like President Trump said, the United States of America will never be a socialist nation. I'm sorry. We will never be a socialist nation. We will remain free, we will remain liberty-loving, and the Republican Party will continue to work hard to make sure that the United States can continue to be a shining light on the hill, not just for the people of our country, but for the entire world.
All All right. I want to get to a couple of audience questions. We're pretty tight on time, so try and be brief on these if you guys can. But we had 2 questions about this, so I'm going to put this one first. This is a question about the way we do our elections. Would your parties ever support something like a ranked choice voting?
No.
Absolutely. And
That was quick. Thank you.
absolutely. In Maine, the Greens in Maine helped pass their ranked choice voting law that they currently use. So you get to choose, instead of voting for the least hated person, you get to vote for your number 1 choice. And then if that one doesn't work out for you, maybe number 2 would be okay. And then the least hated person would be number 3. So the Greens are the party that would be for ranked choice voting, and we want to get that started here. So vote Green and come talk to us. We would love to talk to you if you'd like to see that happen as well.
Either of you can jump in.
Somebody explain ranked choice
Sure,
voting.
that's a good idea, yes.
Well, it's known as the jungle primary, where basically candidates all run.
Excuse me, but
they
I'm not
all
sure
run, and the
Kelly's
top,
right one to
the
be
top
asked
2,
in describing that.
the top
wish
2,
I had a definition
the
in front
top
of me,
2
but-
candidates, just like in many places in California, the top 2 candidates, regardless of party, are the ones that move forward. So,
That's not quite.
Okay.
So
It's
well, okay, and
Lauren, let Lauren explain.
well, in some
Majority
smaller
in Maine.
states, you're able to rank your votes, but it's very difficult in very large states to be able to do such a thing.
I wish I had a definition in front of me. My understanding of this is a lot like what Amee just said, where you would be able to sort of say my number 1, my number 2, and my number 3 choice on a ballot, and it would be less to do with. the
But
party
Lauren,
system.
who is ultimately the winner? Who goes to the general ballot? The top 2.
The top. No, I don't think that's always the case. No, and I think it
It's
works differently in different
an
places.
election that has only 1 spot. That is the case.
So
We have elections experts here. If anyone
let's
knows,
just-
please tell us.
So I can just say that in January of 2019, when we, the Democratic Party, had our state committee meeting, and we elected our governing board, our chair, our vice chairs, we used ranked choice voting.
Did you all vote to have that? Because didn't you all talk about it at your
Can
meeting?
we move forward?
Howard, do you want to jump in on this
hasn't
before
been
we're done here?
defined.
That their group voted not to have
Never mind.
ranked choice or top 2 voting as their Democrat
If
party
you
as
ask
well.
those questions, we can talk about it afterward as well. We had a couple of questions also about abortion rights and where the parties stand on that. We heard already Kelli and Felecia talk about this, so I'd love for the Green Party here and the Libertarian Party here to talk about where you stand on abortion.
Well, where we stand on abortion is, of course, that's a woman's right to choose. There's no other definition or any other thing to say about that. But in healthcare, however, we have a lot to say because, of course, we support Medicare for all. So that's where our standard is for healthcare. And so everybody can have access to it. There won't be any limits. It won't matter your color. It won't matter if you have a disability. It won't matter if you've been marginalized, and it won't matter how sick you are, and it won't matter how much money you have. You have that right to go to the doctor. And that doctor has the right to tell you what the doctor needs to tell you without any limits, because that relationship is between you and the doctor.
Howard?
Well, first of all, government wouldn't be allowed anywhere near this issue, okay? That's number 1. This is an issue between the patient and the doctor. Now, the doctor isn't going to be forced to give an abortion, and the patient doesn't necessarily have a right to abortion because she's going to have to pay for it, okay? She only has the ability, if she wants one, she's going to have to find a doctor that will provide one for her, okay? So this is an issue, this is a personal issue. And libertarians look at every issue just about, especially this one, very personally. And it is a personal issue where government has no business being involved in this thing. Okay, so it's up to the person. If she can't find somebody to give her an abortion, then I guess she's not going to get an abortion. Okay, that's just the way it is. You can't force somebody to give an abortion. This is the non-aggression principle again. Okay, this is what we libertarians are talking about. Utilizing force upon one another. It's illegal. That's the law. Okay, that's the only law. Those are the laws that we need, and those are the laws that we have. So.
We're going to have to leave it there. We are out of time. Let's give all of these 4 a round of applause. A healthy debate.
Nice, good job, thank you.
Say it, Will?
Thank you to our panelists. I also thank Lauren for being here. She did an excellent job. I also want to take a brief moment. There's not going to be a transition period to the next round of breakouts, but before you all go and while you're here, I wanted to say, this is really great to have you all here. We're very excited, but there's one person without whom this event would not be happening, and that's our voter education director, Gina Roberts, and she is back in the room there on her way to the next. And I just wanted to say how grateful we are to have her and her skills for this.